shot that gun, the blood of all the victims of police brutality are on their hands. So all power to the people, all power to the struggle, and we will win.
Stop killing cops!
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 All
right, we got brother Steve Millies here today. He grew up in Milwaukee and has a long history of activism in the community. In fact, he has a long history here. He's a retired union Amtrak worker. He's going to give us a little bit of history and a few more things today. Thank you. Brothers and sisters, 40 years ago, Milwaukee was an industrial powerhouse with over 100,000 factory jobs. And in Milwaukee, that meant union jobs with union wages and union benefits. And the capitalists have destroyed that. The workers built those factories, the capitalists destroyed them. And one of the reasons they destroyed them was that so many of those 100,000 workers were African American, black workers, bringing their struggle into the labor movement, into plants like A.O. Smith, American Motors, Alice Chalmers. All those plants are gone. But one big plant refused to hire any black workers. A plant that had over 6,000 workers on Greenfield. And that was Alan Bradley. Right. That was Harry Bradley, super racist, a founder of the Birch Society. In 1968, over 6,000 workers, only 30 were black, less than 50 were Latino. At a time when at least 1,000 worked, a couple of thousand worked at A.O. Smith, 1,000 worked at American Motors. It was blatant discrimination. It wasn't until Jim Croppy and the NAACP Youth Council let us sit in front of the plant gates that they hired any black workers. And a few years later, Lester Maddox, a super Nazi who handed out axe handles to his white patrons at his Atlanta chicken shack to hit black people with, he brought his presidential campaign to the doors of Alan Bradley expecting support. That's the background, the racist background of this foundation. It's not about philanthropy, it's about hate. Hate against people of color, homophobia, sexism, hatred against trans people. And they have the money to spread hate and poison. And we're here to fight it. They destroyed so many jobs at Alan Bradley that the union, United Electrical Workers Local 1111, was forced to dissolve, to disband in 2010. They're sitting on almost $1 billion of money, and thousands of people, thousands of families lost their jobs. That's what the Bradley Foundation represents. We're in the spirit of Jim Croppy, of Lloyd Barbie, who fought segregated schools while Harry Bradley was a bircher. We're in the spirit of Bill Phillips, who's still fighting for the people at 92 years young, while Bradley is a racist. The Bradley Foundation are racist. Thank you. Keep up the struggle. All right, sisters and brothers, one of the things that's been happening here in Wisconsin, and we mentioned an enemy of the people, and a racist, and a whole bunch of other things. A man named Art Pope, and he's on the board of the Bradley Foundation, and he's from North Carolina, owns Rose's stores, super exploits all kinds of workers in North Carolina, mostly black and Latino and poor white workers, and he's the vicious enemy of our class, the working class, and oppressed peoples. We got a sister here today who's going to speak on mixing some of those connections, because that's what Bradley has been doing. Folks like Art Pope have been an advisor to the Bradley Foundation and to the Wall Street forces here in Wisconsin to how to bring the policies of the Jim Crow South here to Wisconsin. So here we have Sister Danielle Wachi, originally from North Carolina, now living in Chicago.
Yeah. Woo!
Hi everyone. Solidarity for North Carolina. I just wanted to make just wanted to make a few connections. As you said, the Art Pope is on the board of the Bradley Foundation, and he's North Carolina's basically the Koch brothers. He is the budget financer, and he supports Governor McCrory. North Carolina recently was taken over by right-wing legislation, and Pat McCrory and our government in North Carolina has passed bills like HB2 that don't allow trans people to use the bathroom that they need in peace. And so I just wanted to make the connection and solidarity because Art Pope, who is part of the Bradley Foundation, has a big part in what is going on in North Carolina. He's like an heir to this rich family that has stores called Roses and other stores that they're like cheap stores that they put in black and brown communities and low-income communities and exploit us because they take the revenue and end up supporting right-wing legislation that exploits and harms black and brown communities. So solidarity for North Carolina.
All right, sisters and brothers, one of the cities in this country that has, just like our friends here today have told us about the workers and our oppressed people and black workers and white workers and Arab workers and all kinds of other workers of different nationalities in a city known as Detroit. And Mecca for the African people across the world, a working class center. Today we have a brother here today from Detroit named Mike Shane, who's from the Moratorium Now Coalition, and he's drove here 12 hours and been in the streets with us for the last few days, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what's happening in Detroit and some of the connections, and also how the folks there are fighting back as well.
Oh, sisters and brothers, I bring you greetings from the city of Detroit and the state of Michigan. You've heard about a lot of the things going on in Detroit. It just doesn't happen in a vacuum. There are forces in Michigan just like the forces in Wisconsin, and it appears that they're in a race to bring us to the bottom of the barrel. In Michigan, we have the DeVos family. They're the inheritors of the Amway Corporation. One of the things they did over 10 years ago was to initiate and bankroll an initiative that banned affirmative action in Michigan. They didn't stop there. They've been behind the move to privatize all of education in Michigan. It's so bad in Detroit that the school almost went bankrupt a month ago. Teachers went on strike because they were told they would not get paid. This is what foundations like the Bradley Foundation and the DeVos family do to public education. The DeVos family in particular wants to make big money off our children and our grandkids. They, in fact, don't even want any control over private schools. Charter schools, which they want to basically create as private schools. They'll skim their profit off the top and have no accountability to the education of our children. There are other things going on in Detroit. You heard about the bankruptcy. The bankruptcy in Detroit was not initiated by any elected politician that represented the people of Detroit. It was demanded by the banks on Wall Street to make sure that we paid every bond payment at the expense of the people of Detroit. The retirees lost $6.5 billion in their retirement benefits. We've also been hit by the allies of the Bradley Foundation and the DeVos family, Wall Street. They destroyed Detroit. We've had about 300,000 people leave the city in the last 10 years. That was caused by foreclosures. They made tremendous profits. They milked our cities. They destroyed many of our neighborhoods in Detroit. At one point, 9 out of 19 homes on my street, my block, were in foreclosure. Other blocks are not so lucky. No one bought those homes, and the homes don't exist anymore. What we need to keep in mind is that the Bradley Foundation, the DeVos family, and other people like them represent the rich in this country. The rich want everything. Yep. They have more than enough. We need to organize to take it back. Yeah. One of the things we did, Moratorium Now Coalition, and I'm so proud of this, we fought the swap termination fees. These are esoteric financial things from from Wall Street, but we saved by fighting it in court and showing that Bank of America had dirty hands. We saved the people of Detroit somewhere between $150 million and $200 million that we didn't have to pay. And anyway, one other thing about the DeVos family I just have to mention. You all know what Blackwater Corporation is. They hire and train those mercenaries around the world that slaughter people. They're related. They're married to the DeVos family. Blackwater, Prince the founder, is married into the DeVos family. These people are criminals and we must stop. All power to the workers, solidarity from Detroit. Let's keep this going until we take our country back the right way.
Woo! Racist, sexist, anti-gay, Bradley Foundation, go away!
Racist, sexist, anti-gay, Bradley Foundation, go away! Anti-gay, Bradley Foundation, go away! All right, we got an announcement right now in New York City. Thousands and thousands are marching in the streets to demand justice for Louisiana brother and our Minnesota brother and all those killed by the killer cops across this country, which is an outrage. Over 500 people in this country this year alone have been slaughtered by the police. We put an end to it right now today. Today we have our brother here from Boston, Massachusetts, Jerry Scapatula, who is from Stonewall Warriors. It's a long history in the LGBTQ movement, of union activists, and many other things. He's a great fighter for the people.
Okay, everybody can hear me. You know, in the 70s and 80s, we had to fight the disastrous evil money of the Coors Foundation. In the 90s and the 2000s, it was the Koch brothers. Today, it's the Bradley Foundation. They pour hundreds of millions of dollars into these homophobic, racist organizations that spread ideology that contributes to the culture that hates and despises and kills black people and gay people in this country. Homophobia and Islamophobia and racist killer cops just don't drop from the sky. They're created by the conditions that are funded for and built by the Bradley Foundation. Their hands are dirty. They like to think that they give money to philanthropic organizations in the community, but what they're really trying to do is buy off the community. We say, no, you can't buy off the blood on your hands. The Bradley Foundation today pours money into the same homophobic organizations that the Coors brothers did in the 60s and 70s. The Free Conscience Foundation, the Heritage Foundation, all of these organizations that worked for Ronald Reagan, that elected Ronald Reagan in these racist Republicans and Democrats in Congress. They were all put there by this money. That's why we're living the lives that we do. That's why 49 people were murdered in Orlando 2 weeks ago. It wasn't just a terror attack, it was a homophobic attack. People have homophobia and racism on their minds. Police feel free to execute black people on sight. This is not a coincidence. This just doesn't happen. We are here to expose the Bradley Foundation and to show for what they really are. And at this moment, I want to invite Livia Ortiz to say a few words. Livia, could you come?
In that area, yeah.
All right. Community activist from Milwaukee, Livia Bravo Ortiz.
Yeah, I just want to say a few words. You know, Bradley Foundation is not the only foundation that, you know, does this, but, you know, they definitely, you know, they're here in Milwaukee, and, you know, I'm really glad that we're here right now to expose, you know, who they are and what they do, because they operate globally, you know, and that's not right. You know, that's not right that they can feel like, you know, they can interfere in our communities, you know, the way that they supported Harambe schools, you know, and the privatization of those schools to make, you know, an example of privatization in our communities altogether. You know, that's not right, you know, and we need to stay, you know, make the stand here. I just want to keep it real short and, you know, solidarity.
Solidarity. Good to see you.
All right, sisters and brothers, in Rockford, Illinois, and we got Sister Andre over there who's from Rockford. There's been a big struggle against a
a situation where the cops down in Rockford murdered a brother named Jovan. And there's been a big struggle down there in Rockford to demand justice, and it's a long struggle, and it won't be over soon. But today, because of that struggle, the names of the cops have been released and murder charges brought against the security guards that killed Jovan. And that's only come by the result of the struggle. Our next speaker here is Andy Katz, and he's originally from North Carolina as well, but now he's living in Chicago, and he's going to speak to us a little bit today about the RNC, DNC, and a few other things.
Hey there, everybody. So, the Bradley Foundation is,